Okay, so these notes are about two-step equations, and this is only going to have, all the equations will only have whole numbers in them, so that means no decimal numbers, no fractions, and definitely no integers, negative numbers yet, okay? We definitely will have those types of equations coming up this year, but we're taking baby steps towards that. Now, on DMR A, you may remember we did one-step equations to kind of help you prepare for this. And then last year, you probably did these types of equations. That doesn't mean just because you did it last year, though, that you remember how to do it. So that's why we're going over this again. When you are solving an equation, your goal is always the same. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many steps the equation has, your goal is always the same, and your goal is to isolate the variable. What does it mean to isolate?
Get it by itself.
Get it by itself. So we want to get the variable, the letter, by itself, meaning we need to move all the numbers that are around it to the other side of the equation. And the way that we're going to do this is, since these are two-step, we're going to first add or subtract away from the variable. So again, our first step is going to be adding and subtracting. And then the second step will be to multiply or divide, okay, away from the variable. So that will get the variable isolated, it'll be by itself, and you'll be done. Some people struggle with this a little bit because it is the opposite of the order of operations. But if you do it the other way around, it doesn't work, okay? So you have to add or subtract first, and then multiply or divide. And that'll always be the case. So even when we get to equations that have 3 steps or 4 steps, you still will end by doing this. You'll always end back to this, where you add or subtract, and then you multiply or divide. Now on the next slide, I have an example, and I don't want you to write the example. I just want you to kind of look at it, okay? And then we'll do some practice together. Still have some people writing, so I'm gonna wait. Okay, so again, don't write this example, let's just look at it. So if you had the equation 2m plus 12 equals 24, the first thing that I always do in an equation is look to see where is my variable. So my variable's right here, and then I look to see what numbers are around my variable. So on this side of the equal sign, I have a 2 and I have this 12. So that means I need to get rid of the 2 and the 12 so that the m can be by itself. And if I'm first going to be adding or subtracting, I see, well, adding 12. So to get rid of adding 12, I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtracting 12. Notice it's just right under it. And whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other side. So I put a minus 12 over here. 24 minus 12 is 12. And that left me with just my 2m. Then my second step is to get rid of that 2. Remember, when a 2 is right next to a number, or any number is right next to a letter, it means multiplying. Okay, 2 times m. So to get rid of multiplying, we divide. Divide over here, and you get 6. Okay? So go ahead and write down this first example. 9m minus 4 equals 50. And then we will work through it together. All right, so identifying that here is our variable. I'm always going to use m on these. I don't know why I use m so much, but I use it a lot. So we want to get rid of this 9, and we also want to get rid of this 4. So we first want to do our adding and subtracting. So I notice this says minus 4. So I want to do the opposite of minus 4. What's the opposite of minus 4? Adding 4. So underneath minus 4, I'm going to put plus 4. And I have to do it on the other side of my equal sign as well. Now, I know some of you probably feel really confident in this, and you may not feel like showing your work is going to be really that helpful to you because it just slows you down. And I understand why you feel that way, but the reason that we are showing our work is because when we get to the negative numbers, I promise you it gets way more confusing. So being in the good habits, building good habits, of showing your work correctly will help you so much when we get to the integers, I promise, okay? All right, so minus 4 and plus 4 cancel out, and you have your 9m left. And then 50 plus 4 is 54. I think in elementary school, you guys talked about fact families, numbers that get along well with each other when you're talking about multiplying. And 9 and 54 would be kind of in that fact family. Remember what I talked about before we started these notes, that this was going to be only whole numbers. So your answer should only be a whole number. And if you get something that's not a whole number, then you did something wrong. So double check it. Okay, so our second step is to get rid of multiplying by 9, and we are going to divide by 9. Remember we talked about in algebra that you show dividing by using that fraction bar. Okay, so dividing by 9, other side dividing by 9. So your 9's cancel out. And what is 54 divided by 9? 6. So that is your final answer. Now, in previous years, when you just submitted a paper to me, I wanted m equals 6. However, this year, because we have to use Google Forms, I would rather, or I want only on the Google form, just a 6. Okay, so if when you're putting your answer into Google Form, you're only putting 6. You're not putting m equals. Hopefully that'll alleviate some issues with people entering answers incorrectly. Okay. All right, let's look at this next one. 11m plus 9 equals 130. What do you think my first step should be?
Subtract, put the plus to subtract.
Okay, so what number am I going to be working with first?
Minus 9.
The 9. Okay, so we want to do the opposite of plus 9, so I'm going to subtract 9. And again, you have to do it over here as well to keep it balanced. So plus 9 minus 9 cancel out. We have 11m equals 130 minus 9.
That equals 121.
121. Good. So some of you may not have your multiplication facts for 11 memorized, but 11 times 11 is 121, if you didn't know that. Now, if you ever get to one that you're like, oh, I don't know, or they're bigger numbers, like you can do this, okay, over to the side. I know that takes a while longer, but sometimes that's what you gotta do. All right. Anyway, all right, so dividing by 11. I'm hoping that for most of these on this paper that it is stuff that you can do mentally. It wasn't my goal to make things super hard, for sure. So 121 divided by 11 is 11. How we feel about these so far? You remember doing these last year?
They're easy.
Easy? Okay. I want you to feel that way. I feel like if I would have just jumped to hard immediately, that people would not feel very confident in what they were doing.
All the hard.
All right, 7m minus 6 equals 15. Why don't you go ahead and try it on your paper? And then I'll work it out up here, and then you can check back up here to see if you were on the right track. All right, so first step should have been to add 6 to both sides, and 15 plus 6 is 21. Your second step should be to divide by 7, and 21 divided by 7 is 3. So once again, on the Google form, you would only enter 3. That's it. All right. Let's do one more of these, and then we're going to move on to a different type. Okay? Let's do one more. You do this one. Alright, so your first step should have been to subtract 15. 87 minus 15 is 72. So you have to be careful when you're adding and subtracting that you don't make any little mistakes there. I know everyone in here can add and subtract, but sometimes people make silly mistakes. But you can kind of catch your mistakes when you get down to the second step, because remember, you're going to get a whole number answer. So when you divide by 9, 72 divided by 9 is 8. 8 times 9 is 72. So on your Google form, you would just put in an 8. Okay? All right, let's look at a different type of equation, like this one. So it's usually on these equations that, for whatever reason, people's brains just quit working. I think it's because they look at this and they see a fraction, and you guys, for the most part, usually don't like fractions. So your brain just says, nope, I can't do this. But remember, this technically, we don't want to think of it as a fraction. We want to think of this as dividing. So this means m divided by 4 plus 9 equals 13, okay? So our first step is still going to be to add or subtract. So what's my first step going to be?
9 minus 9.
Okay, so subtracting 9, good. Subtracting 9. So first step is just the same as the other problems we've been doing. Bring down your m over 4. And 13 minus 9 is 4. All right, so again, first step is exactly the same as the other problems that we've done today. This is where it gets a little bit different, because now we want to think about getting rid of dividing by 4. So the opposite of dividing is multiplying. Do you remember how to show multiplying in algebra? Parentheses. So when we're showing that we're multiplying by 4, okay, we're getting rid of this 4, we want to put in parentheses the 4. And we have to do it on the other side as well. So dividing by 4, multiplying by 4 cancel out. There's your isolated variable. And 4 times 4 is 16. So it's really not a more difficult question. In fact, I think it's an easier question because multiplying is easier than dividing. But again, some people, when they see it, their brain just doesn't like it. All right, let's do another one. M over 7 minus 5 equals 9. What's your first step going to be?
Adding 5.
Adding 5, okay? So we want to do plus 5 over here and plus 5 over here. So minus 5 plus 5 cancel. Bring down your m over 7 equals 9 plus 5 is 14. Now some people, they're just like, oh, the answer is 2. No, it's not. If we were to put the answer into this equation and you said it was 2 divided by 7 is 14.
How would you put that in Google Forms?
You don't. You were only putting your final answer.
I know, but
Like in the last one, the only thing you put in Google Forms is that. That's it. Okay? You're not putting all your work. All your work's going on your paper. You're putting just the answer into Google Forms. Okay. So what do I need to do to get rid of this 7?
times 7.
Good. I'm going to multiply by 7. Again, make sure you're using parentheses. Now, I don't have 14 times 7 memorized. I don't know the math facts for 14. So, unfortunately, got to go over here. 14 times 7, 7 times 4, 7 times 1, plus 2. So sometimes you just have to work them out over on the side. And there we go, 98. So again, On Google Form, you would only put in 98. That's all you'd have to put in for this problem, okay? I know there would be no way to put in all of your work. All right, why don't you try this next one on your own? Try this next one on your own. All right, first step should have been subtracting 4. So 9 minus 4 is 5. And the second step should be multiplying by 6. 5 times 6 is 30. And you're finished. All right, do you guys want to do more or you feel good?
Feel good.
Good? Okay.
Make a difference.